Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm really delighted that you could come along to this soft launch of the UCD Centre for Irish Towns. I'm Orla Murphy. I'm a part-time assistant professor in the School of Architecture, Planning and Environmental Policy, and I'm co-director with my colleague Philip Crowe of the Centre for Irish Towns, or CFIT, as we've shortened it to. So today's event is online, and it's a taster, we hope, of an in-person formal launch that we are planning for the autumn. But we really wanted to host the event today, I suppose, to tell people about CFIT, about our plans for the future of the centre, and to launch what is the beginnings of our website, which will be populated more in the coming months. And we want to invite you all to join up to become members of CFIT. We're going to put the link to the website and to the sign-up form in the chat. And Philip is going to be telling you much more about the aims of the centre, the benefits of membership in a few minutes. So the format of the event today is in two halves. In the first half, we have three speakers, Tasman Crowe, Justin Synnott and Philip Crowe, who are going to give some background to how and why CFIT has come into being and its purpose and plans for the centre. And so this introductory session is going to last about 30 minutes. And then it's going to be followed by the first in our Talking Town seminar series, which is going to be chaired by my colleague, Katrina Devery. Just a few kind of housekeeping points. If you have any questions, please put them into the chat, and we'll hope to have some time for Q&A at the end of the event for those who can stay on. And also just to let you know that the event is going to be recorded and it'll be posted up on our YouTube channel. Before we kick off, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's helped us to shape the centre so far. So many people have given their time and their support in the form of workshops, both in UCD, but also in those we've held with colleagues in TUD and in Queen's. And we're really grateful for your input. External partners in the Heritage Council, in government departments and local authorities, and colleagues whose work focuses on towns has been really valued support. The centre aims to be a cohesive and outward focused connector of some of the really great work and advocacy that has already taken place on towns and is continuing to grow and to build. And it really builds on years of work by many others. So we wanted to acknowledge that work and particularly express our gratitude for the support of all of our colleagues today who've helped us to get this far. We really want CFIT to be useful for towns and to act as a kind of a glue in what we've seen is sometimes disconnected set of actions around towns. So one of the main aims is to join people together, to connect people across disciplines, across modes within the university, but also reaching out to other universities and more broadly to society in general and to other agencies and partners. CFIT wouldn't be established without the help and support of the Earth Institute, who helped us to establish the need for an interdisciplinary academic centre with a focus on rural towns through the strategic priorities support mechanism. So thanks to Tasman Crowe, Wilfus Morris and Katrina Devery for their huge support and positivity in getting the centre up and running. Thanks to UCD Research, including Orla Feely and to Justin Synnott. Again, we've had tangible and practical help all the way. And to Owen O'Neill, our head of school at APIP, who's also been really supportive. Thanks to John Barry in the President's Office for his ongoing support to build strategic partnerships, which we're working on. We've a really energetic working group who've been collaborating and working a lot behind the scenes to kind of shape the centre. An enormous thanks is due to Pauline Power, who has helped us to build a membership, worked on comms, and who's really single-handedly built the website, which I'm delighted to say went live just this morning. The website is the beginning of what we hope acts as a repository for knowledge sharing. There's lots more work to do in it, and we look forward to developing it. So if our physical home is embedded in towns throughout Ireland, it's great to know that we have a common virtual home where it all comes together on the website. So without further ado, I'm now going to introduce our first speaker, Professor Tasman Crowe of the School of Biology and Environmental Science, and Taz is director of the UCD Earth Institute. And he's going to explain just a little bit about the Earth Institute's strategic priority support mechanism that I mentioned. Taz, over to you.
Thanks very much Indeed, Orla, it's really great to be joining you at this happy event, and thanks for the opportunity to say something about the Earth Institute. And I'm glad it's been able to help you along the way, somewhere in the middle of the journey, I guess. There's been so much going on before this point, and there's much more to come. So it's great that we've been able to be involved. So fundamentally, the Earth Institute, the role of the Earth Institute in UCD is to promote and support environmental and sustainability research and facilitate its application. And this kind of image captures the idea that, for example, that the management of Ireland's bogs needs inputs from scientists and engineers, working also in tandem with researchers from the social sciences, arts and humanities, as well as industry, state agencies, NGOs, community groups, and government. And this is just the kind of challenge that we're interested in. And obviously, CFIT fits also very well into this kind of philosophy. We currently have over 130 academic members and 250 associate members drawn from across UCD, and this is just a subset from our online directory of expertise. And what we really aim to do is forge new connections, both within the membership and externally, to bring together people from different backgrounds and support them to shape their ideas and develop them into projects and initiatives. The Institute is structured around 7 research themes, which provide a kind of focal point for areas of common interest and expertise, and are underpinned by the UN SDGs. And the ones of particular relevance to today's event are people, work and society, the built and constructed environment, and also sustainable communities. And just to illustrate the way the themes kind of hang together, the Sustainable Communities theme is concerned with environmental, economic and social sustainability, recognizing that each of these is crucial for more sustainable development. And its members have identified these areas as of being of particular interest and where there's particular expertise in UCD, so spanning things like sustainable urban and rural regeneration, the built environment, the natural environment, transport, energy, quality of life, and so on. As well as research and education, the Institute works with its members to help them influence policy and governance, engage with society, and consider also translating their work into innovation and enterprise. And as an example of one of these kind of areas of activity, as leaders of the innovation and enterprise dimension, Philip Crowe, who you'll be hearing from again shortly, and who's no direct relation as far as I know, and Ainhoa Gonzalez, are helping develop a culture of social enterprise in UCD, and ran a series of talks and workshops last year, just before COVID, as you can see. So we're part of UCD's research ecosystem, which you're going to hear more about from Justin as well. And so as well as trying to help spark and support new ideas from within and between our themes and within UCD, for example, with other institutes and research centres, we also aim to create new local, national and global partnerships with other institutions and organisations in Ireland and around the world. And again, this resonates very closely with the approach that the CFIT is taking. One of the things the Institute invests a lot of time and energy in is creating spaces for formal and informal interactions that might spark new ideas and connections. And so we really run a lot of workshops and seminars and excursions and social events, and they constitute kind of great points of engagement for anyone who wants to get involved with the Institute, and also helps to generate opportunities for our members and raise our profile with external partners. And so, I mean, our events are open to non-members and to the public. So if you do want to receive our weekly email to keep you informed about what's going on, please do get in touch via the email address here or visit the website. But in particular, we also run a program called the Strategic Priority Support Mechanism, through which we invite enthusiastic members to propose short-term interdisciplinary projects to develop capacity in topical and important areas over a 12 to 18-month period. And the projects that we support through this program receive financial support and are also supported by Katrina Devry, our research manager at the Institute. And we've been funding 2 to 3 a year for the past few years on topics ranging from the SDGs themselves and community action relating to them, to climate resilient agri-environmental systems, and the many facets of hemp. But among those, you can also see CFIT, which has been extremely active and is one of the, and is actually the first of our strategic priority projects to become formally established as a UCD research centre. And it's really been great to see it going from strength to strength in this way. So that's really just a little bit of context for CFIT's origins as an entity. I'm really excited to see where it's going to go from here, and I really wish everyone involved the very best of luck for the future. So thanks again.
Thank you, Taz. And I think it really just demonstrates the benefit of collaboration and interdisciplinarity. And as I mentioned, we wouldn't have got to this point without the Earth Institute. So thank you very much for just contextualizing that for us. Our next speaker is Justin Synnott from UCD Research. And Justin's just going to explain a little bit about how CFIT fits into the overall UCD research strategic context. Justin.
Thanks very much, Orla, and thanks, Philip, for asking me to come along and say just a few words. Good afternoon to everybody. So as Orla has said, my name is Justin Synnott, and I'm a research partner from UCD Research and Innovation, which is the central management and support and research development unit within UCD. So I just want to say a few words, as Orla said, to situate and locate the work of CFIT into UCD Research's research strategy, which was recently launched. So I'm really happy and excited about the development and the soft launch of CFIT this afternoon. In the research partners team within UCD Research and Innovation, we have developed a campaigns-based approach to research support and development. So what this means effectively is that we scan the external horizon for the large-scale global and societal challenges that we're all faced with, and then look internally to UCD and try to think and figure out where pockets of strength lie and how we can promote and foster an interdisciplinary response to those external challenges. So to put that in context, one of the campaigns that I'm working on at the moment with my research partner colleague, Sinead McGinley, is a campaign and an approach to responding to the challenge of building sustainable communities. So that's one of 10 campaigns that the research partners team are following and developing just at the moment. So the topic and the role of CFIT, well, we see them as playing a really central role in leading and developing that campaign. So we can really position UCD and partners within UCD as really leading the discussion around this topic and positioning ourselves to influence policy, to seek and be successful in drawing down funding to allow the capacity growth within the university. So obviously, I think that the work of CFIT is both timely and urgent. Already, I'm in great admiration of the work that has taken place over the last 18 months. We see links being built at EU level through Orla Murphy's participation in the Bauhaus initiative, national links being built, and a great growth in reputational awareness, I suppose, with CFIT positioning themselves to be able to influence and inform national policy on the discussion of promotion of Irish towns and their importance, and also developing a really broad and varied network with a range of stakeholders relevant to the topic outside of UCD. So from the perspective of UCD Research, we're really excited about the development, really happy to be able to support the soft launch this morning. And as I said, in full admiration of all of the work that's already taken place through CFIT's varied activities. So we wish you continued success. We are looking forward to continued support, and I'm really excited about the conversations that will take place in this afternoon's webinar. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Justin. And I suppose it does highlight the, sometimes there's a kind of a gap between the STEM research subjects and arts and humanities. And this is particularly, I think that campaign of sustainable communities is an opportunity to kind of bridge that gap a little bit, which is also something that we hope that CFIT can help to do. I'm going to now hand you over to my colleague, Philip Crowe, co-director of CFIT. And Philip is assistant professor in climate responsive design in UCD. Obviously co-director of the UCD Centre for Irish Towns and co-chair of Innovation and Social Enterprise in the UCD Earth Institute. And Philip is going to say a bit more about how the centre came about, its aims and objectives and our future plans. Philip, over to you.
Thanks, Orla. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Taz and Justin, for those introductions. So my job today is to introduce CFIT, as Orla says. So I'm going to give you some background to the centre. I'm going to talk about what's it about, why is it needed, and give you some idea of how we are hoping to operate and what we hope to achieve. And I suppose ultimately try and persuade you to get involved at some level, or at the very least to stay on the call for the first of our seminar series, Talking Towns, which should be just after 1 o'clock. So I suppose simply put, CFIT is a Centre for Research and Training, recently approved by the Academic Council, as has been mentioned. We're hosted in the School of Architecture, Planning and Environmental Policy, and obviously supported by the Earth Institute. I suppose crucially, we're a transdisciplinary centre, so we're trying to bring together a broad range of disciplines and stakeholders to collaborate on societal challenges as they relate to towns on the island of Ireland. So I suppose we see towns as this sort of convergence point for a broad range of social ecological systems. So the potential for transdisciplinary research is really significant. So crucially, as I say, it's an all-island centre, so it's not just about UCD, it's also about the other third-level institutions, north and south of the border. And I suppose we're rather ambitious, and we would like to think that we are going to become the go-to entity for research in CPD on Irish towns. And there is an evident demand for that. So, I mean, towns is a very broad area. I mean, life happens in towns, but we do have a specific focus, I suppose, on supporting sustainable communities, which obviously fits with SDG 11, but also with the UCD research campaign that Justin's just mentioned, and also a focus on the low carbon transition. And we're very focused on trying to create an evidence base that is perhaps missing in many areas and influencing policy. There'll be a focus on. And then obviously we are a teaching and research, a research and training centre. So there's a focus on excellent teaching and learning capacity relating to towns in UCD. So who's involved? Well, we have an advisory board that is going to evolve and diversify over the remainder of the year. A lot of familiar names on that, I'm sure. Co-directors, as Orla has said, is myself and Orla, and those are just on the screen some examples of work that the two of us have been involved with over, well, if we put the years together, Orla, it's well over 40 years of practice and research relating to towns. So there's Orla's work on a project called Town, which has a superb animation, which is online from 2012, and then her work with Free Market. But then also recently we worked together on the Town Centre Living Initiative synthesis report, which has apparently been very influential in terms of policy making with the new Town Centre First policy. And then also I just put up there's a really excellent podcast series curated by the Heritage Council called Putting Town Centres First. And as Orla has mentioned, we've got a fantastic working group from a great range of schools, as you can see. And obviously what we're doing at the moment is trying to build up our membership and get more people involved with the centre. So why towns? Why have we gone to all this bother of setting up a centre? Well, I suppose the first point is Ireland is a nation of towns. We have up 233 towns with a population of over 1,500. Something like 41 have a population of over 10,000, and they're obviously really crucial. It's a very obvious point to the cultural, social, and economic structure of the country. And also about a third, I mean, it's a crude figure, but about a third of the population lives in towns. And then another third lives in a rural location and would be very dependent on a town. So you're looking at sort of 2/3 of the population. But despite all of this, I think it's fair to say that most Irish towns are actually in decline, and they're facing a whole range of different challenges. And all of these challenges are exacerbated by things that research can contribute to, can help with. So there's a lack of data and knowledge on our towns. There's a lack of joined up thinking. There's a lack of coherent evidence-based research. So in terms of challenges, I mean, there's an endless list, and certainly we don't want the centre to just focus on the urban challenges. There are lots of social ecological systems that need to be addressed. But just to give you three quick examples, one that came up very repeatedly in the workshops that we've run to try and co-create the centre that Orla mentioned with with UCD and with TUD and with Queen's. One that came up a lot was vacancy and dereliction. There's excellent data coming from the Collaborative Town Centre Health Check, and it actually is definitely the most reliable data where people on the ground, the Heritage Council runs this programme on the ground, surveying the towns. And those figures that are on your screen are really alarming, particularly when you look at what the sort of average is in other countries in Europe. And there's huge consequences to vacancy, obviously relating not just to housing, but to carbon management, to heritage, to the viability of businesses and services. If we look at something like urban wastewater treatment, the EPA reported last year that on 2019 that there's raw sewage from 35 towns and villages being discharged into adjacent water bodies, and that water treatment at 19 of the state's 172 towns and cities failed to meet European standards. So all of this obviously poses significant public health and environmental risks. And then if we look at another challenge, and these are fairly randomly chosen, look at decarbonisation. We all know Ireland's a carbon laggard, and towns have a really significant role here. So these are non-ETS sectors and buildings, transport and agriculture. So obviously very much relevant to towns. And I suppose my point is that towns are this convergence point for a huge range of social ecological systems challenges. And so there is this huge potential for research. There's huge opportunities as well in towns. Towns can facilitate sustainable communities that are walkable, that are sociable, that are resilient, in line with the UCD strategy and with UN SDG 11. And at the national scale, they're incredibly important in terms of social cohesion, making sure that no one feels left behind, no place feels left behind. We see towns as critical as distributed centres for a just low carbon transition. So if you take vacancy, so in terms of embodied carbon, it's absolutely essential that we use existing spaces efficiently and existing infrastructure. In terms of opportunities and population growth, so the national planning framework predicts that there's going to be an additional 1 million people on the island by 2040. So towns have a huge potential to accommodate this increase, but the received wisdom, the discourse is that increase is going to be taken up by the cities, but we're very interested, why wouldn't some of that be taken up by towns? And then there's a huge opportunity in terms of these being shared challenges. So they're not just applicable to certain towns, they're applicable nationally, but they're also applicable across the EU and internationally. So there's huge opportunities, we think, for network building and cross-border collaboration, and we've started to make connections there. And then we're also at a really interesting moment, obviously, in terms of the discourse on towns. And we would see that in relation to policy. So there's new policy or existing policy relating to towns, like the Town Centre First policy, which hopefully there's going to be some sort of announcement this month. It's due. Then our rural future policy on remote work and on broadband. There's also new funding opportunities at different scales from the EU Green Deal down. There's a renewed energy, I suppose, in the discourse in the future of towns, particularly in the context of COVID. So relating to things like where do we work, where do we live, house prices, house quality, who do we value, what do we value, how do we spend our time. And I suppose there's a growing consensus that there's a huge potential to transform our towns and that there's a vital role in there for research. And I think this has been evidence. We've only been in existence maybe for a year, and this is our soft launch, so we've been in sort of pre-existence, I suppose. But we have been approached by many community groups, by local authorities, by media organisations, by state agencies, all looking to explore complex interdisciplinary challenges, in effect sort of justifying the need for the centre. So how does CFIT fit into the wider context? We see CFIT as a key component in an emerging system the Heritage Council, among others, has been advocating for a new governance approach to towns, because at the moment it isn't particularly clear, and been advocating for a small agile unit that might be called Ireland's Towns Partnership, that would be based on the Scottish version, and that's suggested in the programme for government. And we would see the Centre for Irish Towns very much as a research support there for evidence base, along with the Collaborative Town Centre Health Check run by the Heritage Council. So how will we operate? We have carried out a number of workshops, as Orla mentioned, and from them we've identified different themes, 8 themes. So we looked in the workshop at challenges and the role of research. So the themes are on your screen there, and we've put together a sort of aspirational, ambitious schematic here of how the centre might work. And the idea would be to get some of these themes up and running with PIs and co-PIs and teams of funded PhDs to work across the themes, come together to work on different projects. So the centre will aim to generate funded projects that work across these themes and integrate teaching and learning as well. And we've mapped these different themes onto the SDGs. So the bigger the SDG, the more significant, or the more frequently they come up. So in terms of what we want to achieve, or what will be the impact, we've summarized the impact in terms of 4 categories there, and I don't have time to go through them in detail, but in terms of knowledge, so things like policy making would be informed directly by research. In terms of collaborations, the centre is going to establish strengthened cross-border learning, so that's through collaborations with Queen's University, but also with the University of Edinburgh. In terms of funding, we're going to bring together transdisciplinary teams to work on identified challenges and new funding applications. And then in terms of pedagogy, we are hoping to see excellence in interdisciplinary teaching and learning and supporting collaboration, in particular between the spatial and synthetic design disciplines, so architecture and urban design and planning, etc., and other disciplines. So in a sense, trying to physically drag energy from Richview into Newstead, into Belfield. And we also are planning to co-design CPD courses with partners to address present and future demands that we can see. So just very quickly, what have we been doing to date? So there's a list on the screen. I suppose we could summarize that, and that we've been working to establish a centre. We've been setting up a collaboration with the University of Edinburgh, which looks like it has huge potential. Orla and myself have been sitting on an unmute. Okay, am I unmuted? Good. And we've been working on some funding applications, which are listed there. So the most important section is, well, what can CFIT do for you? Why would you be signing up? Well, I suppose you'd be joining a transdisciplinary community of interest. So that would hopefully be useful in figuring out who is doing what in terms of making connections and engaging with a network of stakeholders beyond policymakers, and for policymakers to be connecting with researchers. In terms of collaborations, just to give you an example, you would have the opportunity to be involved with something like this, which is a collaboration with the University of Edinburgh, and specifically with the Edinburgh Futures Institute. We're calling this collaboration Nations of Towns. And we have run an event in March, which had 6 speakers, 3 of whom were from Ireland and included the Heritage Council and Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council. And we ran a workshop then looking at common challenges with Scotland, and the role of creative thinking and research, and the opportunities of a future relationship. And this has led on then to co-creating the shape of the future relationship. And we see three strands to that, I suppose, which are on the screen: sharing knowledge and experience, because we have a lot to learn from Scotland. Scotland in many ways is 10 to 12 years ahead in terms of governance and policy on towns. In terms of enriching teaching and learning experiences, and then creating new research opportunities. And we're hoping to hold another event in the autumn. And then in terms of what can CFIT do for you in events and dissemination, so the best example of that is the seminar series that today is the first example of, and I'll leave Katrina to introduce that, but it's a seminar series that is going to be run in partnership with the Earth Institute. And then in terms of funding supports, the best example is that we're setting up what we're calling an IRC support pathway. So that relates to a suite of funded scholarships for postgraduate level from the IRC. And it would be primarily about helping prospective students to identify and connect with supervisors that they select who are members of CFIT, and then providing bespoke training and support for the application. So the idea is that we build up a team of PhD researchers working on research related to towns, and we'll be issuing more information on that in the coming weeks. And then there would be the opportunity of getting involved in different funding applications, identifying colleagues to work with and new opportunities. And this is a very recent example, I think, from last week, where we put together a submission to the Creative Ireland Climate Action Call 2021, and our submission was with a community group called Ballina, Ireland's Greenest Town Initiative, obviously based in Ballina, County Mayo, and a local artist, and we were proposing a project that would work with local communities on the ground in Ballina to reimagine and transform the sort of ubiquitous green spaces that exist in all of our towns, in housing areas, through the use of water, and then using water as a means of connecting communities to climate change and climate action in a very tangible way. So we were calling it Ripple, making connections between water and climate change. And we have a number of examples of research projects that have come out of collaborations and connections made through Centre for Irish Towns already. So I suppose in summary, CFIT is about new data, it's about new partnerships and collaborations, it's about coordinated transdisciplinary responses to shared challenges, contributions to teaching and learning, and new CPD courses that we would co-create with partners. There are 3 ways to get involved. The most demanding is to get involved in the working group, and as I say, we will be approaching people to get involved there. Also getting involved as a member, so it would be listed on the website. You can make connections, you become an active participant in the centre, and then also simply could be just put on the mailing list and receive updates on what we're doing. And those details are in the chat. Pauline has put them up. So I'm going to end there. It was a bit of a whirlwind. There's some details on the website and on the Twitter handle. So I'm going to hand over. Thank you for your attention. And I'm going to hand back to Orla now.
Thanks so much, Philip. It was, as you say, it was a whirlwind. There's loads of information there, and I see Pauline has also put the link in the chat for anybody who'd like to become members of CFIT. Don't forget, if you have any questions, do put them in the chat, and if we've time at the end, we'll try to get to them as well. But it's so exciting that 2 years ago, Philip and I met in the Science Building. We had a cup of coffee and we discussed, wouldn't it be useful to have a dedicated academic centre that focused on Irish towns, given the amount of work that we knew that was going on by different people across the country, and how important that work was. So it's really, I'm just thrilled today that that dream has become the beginnings of an academic centre. So that concludes this first introductory session. We're going to go straight into the first of our Talking Towns seminar. You're going to see me again in a minute, but for now I'm going to hand over to